Go figure, I should assume that having all this stuff planned out by Alpha, doing all this research, looking into the sanctuary, doing all this stuff, getting all the evidence they need, and then just Sid blows it all up. And yet still they think it's all according to his plan. Like, oh, Sid's got it all figured out. Shadow's got it all figured out. But no, he just atomic again. Because why not? At this point, I kind of just assume that everything's going to be resolved by atomic. And nothing's ever going to actually get fixed. You're going to have the parties on the outside just constantly trying to figure out what's going on. And Sid's just going to be blowing up every single city. This is the second city now that he's completely destroyed. And he just shrugs it off and walks away. But no, very brutal start of the episode, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was going to be something where he's going to get the code from her, and then he's going to be able to draw the sword and break the core, and then everything's just going to fall apart. But no, he literally just uses her stabbing him to hold her still so that he could chew out her artery out of her neck. Shadow's a very different MC. He's made a different stuff. And then yes, like I kind of assumed, he was keeping one eye closed. It seems like he was insinuating that he was essentially trying to temper the absorption. But either way, it just kind of comes down to him figuring out some way of getting around the absorption so that he can go full power and destroy everything. Which I think got a kick out of. The guy's like, congratulations. He's like, thank you. Takes him off. But it was funny because like he starts to send all of these other clones after him. And you can see the backdrop never changes. So like no matter what angle, no matter how many of these girls show up, they all still are in the chambers. Just a side note, it's just a minor flaw in the animation. But no, with him kind of blowing up everything, that's where we finally get the confirmation of what I was kind of speculating. Now, the only thing that was a little bit different than what I was expecting is that, yes, they get out of there, and Aurora kind of comes to him and says, thank you, I've been kind of stuck in there. And he's like, oh, you're disappearing. She's like, yeah, I'm disappearing. And then she says, if you ever find the real me, and then she's cut off. And that's where it kind of shifted a little bit. Again, my mentality was that Aurora was Diablo's. Which she is. She is a Diablos. But it seems like that self of her inside of the sanctuary was just the arm. Because it very briefly shows the arm with the change, and then it shows her. And then she disappears and says, if you find the real me. So, I was kind of close. Like, my thought process, again, that was that Aurora was Diablos. She was. But that herself there was just a fragment of her. Just her arm. So it still implies that eventually he could find the real Diablos, the real Aurora, and then she'll become a part of the harem. But it will be curious if when he finally does meet her, will she have any knowledge of who Shadow is? Or is this being a separate part of her arm, mean that she won't even know who he is the moment he faces her? And then kind of following this whole thing, we kind of get a huge wrap up. On the side of Alexia and Rose, and yes, Beta as Natsumi, we get a kind of pairing there. Like, they decide to make the trio of princesses / rider. And the idea that Alexia is frustrated with everything that's happened. With the whole explosion in her kingdom, now the explosion here. She's frustrated that people behind the scenes are causing catastrophes, and she wants to stop it. So she wants to create, like, this group of people that all have connections that can work together in order to stop this stuff. Which, yes, the entire time I'm chuckling to myself because, yes, they're bringing in Beta, who is not who they think she is. But it's interesting because through this whole thing, we of course have Beta. She is essentially a spy for the Shadow Garden. Yes, Alexia is working with Ida still in order to solve things in her kingdom. And then you have Rose, who's kind of in this other department that we haven't really seen anybody around her. But still, it seems like there's something important happening to her. Like, the last scene with her shows her still trying to have the same technique and the refinement of Shadow, but she has something building up inside of her. This cracking in her chest that is causing her pain. I don't remember for sure, but I think that has something to do with what they've as a whole have been trying to experiment with. I think like the earlier segments where we had these people kind of doping up, they kind of had that same effect. So makes me believe that she had some sort of experiments done to her to make her stronger, which I think is something we're probably going to see come to fruition with this next Bushin festival thing, because she's probably going to take a part in it. It sort of makes sense because in the broader story itself, if she's the queen of this one kingdom that is all about the divine teachings, it would make sense that because the divine teachings and the cult of Diablos, all that's kind of working together behind the scenes, that she probably got wrapped up into it somehow. But no, like I said, everything seems to be sort of building up towards the Bushin tournament. The Shadow Garden's talking about how the royal capital of Midgard is next. Gamma is looking at building like an entire street of something. and apparently has something to do with petroleum. Delta is running around howling at the moon. Apparently she'll come back eventually. And like I said, you also have Alexia talking to Idis about trying to get at least her kingdom to move. And it seems as if, according to Idis, her father won't do anything. The king won't do anything. He doesn't want to essentially rock the boat. He's sticking to the status quo until he can get some sort of definite evidence that he can hold. But I almost feel as if they're starting to flag Idis right here, because her whole thing there is, I'm going to win this Bushin Festival. I'm going to win the tournament, and that's going to make me have more power with the Knight's Order, and that's going to make everything kind of change. It seems as if, from Idis' perspective, she's trying to regain the trust that she had. Apparently, after this whole situation that happened, her losing her men, it seems as if she's lost a little bit of favor there. And so she's hoping that with this tournament, she's like, I'm definitely going to win. But again, Alexia keeps pressing her and like, you have to be careful. The Cult Diablo is going to be involved. Shadow's going to be involved. You're going to get hurt. And she's like, nope. It's okay. I don't care what artifacts they have. I'm going to win. Again, like I said, I feel like it's starting to flag her. Like there's something going to happen with her. The last thing that we had was pretty cool because it had Alpha with Shadow, and apparently they had built a home that was similar to homes in Japan. And apparently this was a place that was built as a base for all of the girls to be there and to train and everything. And I thought it was a really nice little scene because it kind of shows something of comfort that he gave to the girls to give them a place to kind of gain their strength. And he was talking about the aspect that he wanted to train them with defense, show them techniques. It kind of, again, shows that very unique relationship that Alpha has with Sid versus everybody else. It seems like Alpha herself seems to have the most insight into what Sid used to be. They haven't really truly, like, officially said that she knows everything. He just has this knowledge, this forbidden knowledge that he's given Alpha. So it's not confirmed quite yet that Alpha knows about his past life. I mean, yes, technically Beta has more forbidden knowledge as well that she's writing into books, but it almost gives me a sense that Alpha knows about his life and not it just being forbidden knowledge. So I'll be curious if eventually they'll kind of reveal that, because again, it always seems like Alpha has some sort of knowledge that nobody else has. And she's also the one that has the most strength out of everybody. Seemingly because, again, she's a bloodline of Olivia. But again, this episode showed a lot of promise in the idea that it seems like we're going to build up into a really big climactic battle with everybody coming to one place, and a lot of the kingdoms watching this tournament and everything. So hopefully it doesn't just end in another atomic. No more, please don't end every single arc with atomic. I know it's probably funny to a lot of people, but we've done it twice now. Move on. I like the official title of the Royal Chancellor Perv Asshat. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 14 of Eminence and Shadow. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody that does. And y'all take care.